Okay, it's been a minute or two, so we'll go ahead and get started. And for those that know me, know that I really like to start our meetings on time out of respect for all of you that were able to get here at noon, as we said, so we'll go ahead and get started. And again, thanks to everyone that's watching this via stream. As we go through today, we have some presentations. At the end, we'll have a time for some Q&A. When we do have our Q&A, we will ask you to wait for the microphone to come to you, because those that are streaming it live, they can't really hear you unless you're on microphone. So if you would just help us out with that, that'd be great. And then now that we've got kind of the housekeeping stuff out of the way, I want to just welcome everyone to our Ambassador Program Open House. Today what we want to do is talk about what the Ambassador Program is all about, some of the mechanics of how it's working, some of the things that we've done in the past and what we're going to do in the future, ask for some volunteers in different areas, explain what that means. Before we do get started, though, I did want to just get a quick little show of hands. How many folks are here from a science division? Science or engineering division, thank you. A few. And how many here from operations divisions? Close. So what we're going to talk about today is going to focus on the STEM arena, but our next part, or I guess we can say phase 2, plan B, whatever it's going to be, is going to branch into operations. So all the operation folks, thanks a lot, because we'll be doing more with this in just a minute. So to go ahead and get started, I want to introduce my colleague, Lady Edos. I think most people in the room and hopefully people online know Lady. Lady is in the Diversity Inclusion Office, and this Ambassador Program has been something that we've been working on for a number of years. She's going to go into some history on that pretty quickly here, but it has launched our pilot last year, and so now this year forward we want to make it a full, robust, sustainable program. So with that, Lady will get us started. Thanks. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you're first. Then come back up here because some people here. Colette Flood is also from WDE. Lady's going to get into it. I don't want to take too much of a presentation, but when we started to figure out what we want to do for the Ambassador Program, we were looking at various options and what we wanted to really make it be sustainable, robust and sustainable. And we had a lot of different opportunities available to us. What we wanted to do to really make it worthwhile and get the most bang for our buck here at the laboratory, Diversity Inclusion Office partnered with Workforce Development and Education Office, because this is areas that they've been working on for a very long time. And so we wanted to take advantage of all the efforts and work that they've been doing, and then we're just kind of piggybacking on the end of it to kind of make it a little bit broader so that our areas are also included. So we have today Lady Edos from Diversity Inclusion and Colette Flood from Public Affairs, Workforce Development and Education. Thanks.
Test. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Crystal. And like Crystal said, I'm Lady. I am with the Diversity Inclusion Office, and we want to share a little bit of what the lab has been doing in terms of our pilot program for the Ambassador Program. So we're very excited to share this with you, and we also have some information after or towards the end of the presentation in terms of how you can get involved. So some of you may have seen this presentation before, but for those who haven't, this is a little bit of an overview for the D&I initiative. It was actually announced by Paul Visados in November 2013. If you remember, he had 6 initiatives at the time. 5 were science related, and D&I was the one that was non-science related that he was thinking that he could be embedded in the programs. So he actually thought of the idea of the Ambassador Program in 2014, and what his thoughts were was rather than just doing sort of general outreach, he wanted to actually make relationships with different institutions. And the original idea was to go to historically black colleges and universities, minority-serving institutions, and actually have relationships with those institutions, make relationships with faculty, administrators, and then have some kind of relationship with the students to be able to come to the lab. And talking to him about that, we thought that we could have more bang for our buck if we partnered with Workforce Development and Education, who are already going to these conferences. So if you're not aware, they've been going to these targeted conferences for several years now. And these conferences are aimed at targeting underrepresented groups in STEM from various academic institutions and professional organizations. And right now, even though we're focusing on STEM at this time in terms of these targeted conferences, and we'll share a little bit of what those conferences are, we are also looking at operations. So we want to reach out to you if you know of any organizations in the professional areas that are targeting underrepresented groups. We want to know more about that and look into phase 2 of that. We want to establish meaningful relationships with the attendees and organizers. And right now, we have workforce development and education going to these conferences. And in the past, as an operations entity, we'd have a booth there, but we couldn't necessarily speak on the science and engineering that was happening here at the laboratory. We could answer questions about what the jobs are, et cetera, but we really wanted to partner more with the scientific staff, engineering staff, technical staff, so that we're able to speak to the participants about the work that's going on here at the lab. And not just to be able to talk to them about it, but to participate in panel sessions, to participate in talks, to participate in judging poster sessions, that sort of thing. So really being an asset to the participants there and knowing a little bit more about what it's like to be a scientist at the laboratory. Right now, we're there sort of as representatives of the lab, but we're not necessarily scientific staff. And so we wanted to have that relationship. And this is already coordinated with WD&E. So we're looking for ambassadors to be part of that program. So for the ambassador, as mentioned earlier, we're looking for them to prepare a proposal for technical presentation. This is also something that we're trying to work with other national labs on. So we've actually had we had an ambassador in the past that was part of a panel of what it's like to work at a national lab. So that's something that's also an option. Present at a selected conference if the proposal is accepted. Be part of a panel session or judge a poster session. We're asking the ambassadors to also attend, network with the participants, provide some promotional materials about the laboratory, about some employment opportunities, and also internship opportunities. And also to refer them back to our booth so that they know a little bit more about the laboratory. Something that we were trying to think about a little bit more is how do we sustain and maintain the relationships with the attendees that we meet. A lot of times we just go to these conferences, we have our booth, they get some postcards or whatnot, and then that's pretty much it. So we're trying to do something a little bit different here and trying to pilot a LinkedIn outreach approach where if you're familiar with LinkedIn, we can create a group on LinkedIn. So it would be that conference that we attend, and we'd be able to add the participants to that group. And the idea is to maintain that pipeline, maintain that relationship, keep in touch with them at least twice a year. The ambassadors can share with them, some employment opportunities, maybe some openings in the area, or even some internship opportunities, some deadlines that they could apply for if they're an undergraduate, that sort of thing. So they would, send group messages to keep in touch, answer any questions. The participant might be able to reach out to them and also ask them specific questions about the work at the lab. So really trying to maintain that relationship, have more of a personal touch to that type of outreach. For our office and the Workforce Development and Education Office, we would provide the funding for travel and also for registration. We would also provide some administrative support, in terms of submitting the abstract, keeping track of deadlines, that sort of thing. We would also host an orientation and strategy meeting. So, if you are interested in being an ambassador, we would have strategy meetings with you and to sort of talk about what our action plan is going to be, and also host a little bit of an orientation around the LinkedIn approach. We'd also host a booth at the conference and also provide information so that you're also knowledgeable about sharing what internship opportunities are available for undergraduate university students, community college students, and visiting faculty. For those of you in leadership roles, what we're asking is that these ambassadors would be approved by leadership, and that the leadership also promotes the value of D&I at Berkeley Lab. We're also asking for the senior leaders and the supervisors to provide the funding for the ambassador's time while traveling at the conference. So that's the only request in terms of funding while we fund the travel and the registration. And we also ask that you value their participation. We've heard that this is something that an ambassador might be interested in. However, their supervisor or senior leader might not be very supportive of it because it's taking away from the lab, taking time away from the lab. And what we're really asking is to, if the division is very vocal in supporting D&I, is to put that into action. So to recognize them either in the newsletter or an all-hands event, maybe have a certificate, have an announcement, incentives, spot award, just anything to sort of recognize and promote that the division values their participation in this program. So with that, we'll talk a little bit about some of the past conferences that we've attended, and with that, I'll hand it over to Colette.
Hear me? So we have been doing this for a while. Oh, thank you everybody for coming. I really appreciate it, and thank you for the partnership. We've been going to these conferences for a while for our internship programs. They're actually pretty competitive and very well known, but it's very important for us if we're really going to try to reach our diversity goals that we focus on underrepresented conferences and target these audiences. So as opposed to going to specific colleges, we have gone to these conferences where all of these colleges come together by discipline. So in the past, we've gone to, we participated in SACNAS, in SHIP, and in ACES, and you can see the long names that are there. And these are all scientific or STEM conferences that are targeted towards these audiences. So they have workshops and symposiums. The engineering will also have robotics competitions, technology competitions. There are networking breakfasts. There are always career expos. A lot of times the career expos are open to the public as well, in addition to all of the colleges and universities and the faculty that come together. It's been really successful. It's been taking some time for us to build momentum, but when I first started, people didn't even know what Berkeley Lab was. Not to say that they automatically know who we are now. They always think that we're Livermore. But we definitely have made some traction. So when I do go to conferences, people are like, oh, I do know Berkeley Lab. Oh, my friend did participate in SULI. And so I think that we have made some headway and some progress. And I know that our recruiters as well have established some great relationships by attending these conferences. So it's been very successful, and the ambassador program is going to give more legs to it and build on what we've already started. Upcoming conferences, your opportunity to participate in the future. Again, we're going to do SACNAS. It's one of the largest ones. They have, I think about 3,000 attendees. National Society of Black Physicists, this will be the first year that I've gone, so I'm not really that familiar with it. I'm assuming that it's probably a lot smaller. SHIP is the largest of the ones that target the Latino community. They actually have about 7,000 attendees. ACES, which targets American Indians and Native Americans. As you can imagine, it's probably a lot smaller. It's around 1,600 attendees. And Emerging Researchers National Conference, it targets African Americans. It is national. It's sponsored by National Science Foundation and all of their underrepresented minority programs. These are those students and faculty and from those universities that are involved in those programs that come together. It's a huge conference. It's across all disciplines as well, and it's about between 5,000 and 7,000 every year.
I'm going to leave it on this page for just a second. Colette talked quite a bit about students, which is appropriate because her area is to work with some of the SULI students and such. But certainly many of these conferences also have working professionals that are looking to expand their area of interest or to expand their networking profiles. And so certainly SACNAS, NSBE, and SHIP all have professionals there as well as students that are looking for opportunities to move forward or looking for some advice in that area. So some FAQs that I want to chat with a little bit. Yes, Rachel? Yes. Yes, all of these have postdocs that are now looking for their next level job. So for those online, Rachel wanted me to make sure that I reminded everyone that postdocs are also at all of these conferences. I saw Anna go jump up with the microphone. So here's some FAQs that we keep getting questions, so we thought we would just address these here. Do you have to be a member of that group? No. If you're going to some of the STEM conferences, we'd like you to be a member of that science arena, because these individuals, while the conferences do attract a very diverse group of audience attendees, their consistent thread through it all is they're very interested in that area of science, whether it be physics or, well, SACNAS has a variety of STEM areas there. So just a scientist or an engineer is what we're looking for these STEM ones. Yes, and so we can work with you for the ones like SACNAS or ACES that are multidisciplinary of who should go. There's also quite a bit of information on the web about those different organizations. Can you have more than one ambassador per division? Yes, you can have as many as your division wants to have. What we're trying to do for each one of the conferences that we mentioned just a few minutes ago is that we're going to fund 2 scientists or engineers to go to each one of these conferences. So we'll fund 2. SHIP, for example, it might be really appropriate to have engineering attend the SHIP conference because it's an engineering conference. Same thing for NSBE. However, there are engineers in many other divisions, and it might be good to have another division. So it depends on what kind of volunteers we get, what the interests are. So we will work that together with those that are interested in various programs.
And one thing I do want to add about that is it's similar to Speakers Bureau. We're trying to build a roster of ambassadors. And as you know, if you are a volunteer, a lot of times the same volunteers get tapped on the shoulder to do the same things, right? So we want to make sure that we cast a wide net, that we have a good pool of ambassadors ready to go and trained. So we want to make sure that we expand this as much as possible. And obviously for you can put that in your performance review that this is a D&I effort that you participated in.
Each one of us has that now in our evaluation, so we're helping you out with that. Can ambassadors and divisions suggest other conferences to attend? Yes, we can. We've selected those that my accounts now, my PIDs, can afford for this next fiscal year. As I said, we're funding up to 2 individuals for these travels. So what we're hoping to do is to continue this and expand the pilot or create a full program, and then show the successes from this program, and then hopefully get funding for it directly from the director's office for an expanded program. But we need to get more feedback and more success stories for this. But yes, absolutely, and then it may be best for us to attend something different than what we're actually funding for now. Are postdocs eligible? Absolutely. If you're a laboratory employee and you're allowed to travel, absolutely you can participate. A lot of times the postdocs are really great ambassadors because they're very recent to what the individuals that they're talking to about what it's like to work here. Operations folks are eligible to be ambassadors. What we want right now are the STEM ones to actually be able to participate in the conference so that they can talk to the attendees about the science research that's getting done here. But we have used operation folks in the past for some of our activities and events, and as we said, this is going to expand into operational areas, and so we're very interested in organizations that are from the operations arena that would be like a SHIP or a NSBE or NSP or something like that, that would be for finance or business management or project planning or what have you, that would attract the diverse groups that are underrepresented here at the laboratory. And how do we measure success? So measuring success is always a challenge, and it's always kind of interesting and fun and a little bit thinking out of the box here. So the overall goal for this program truly is to expand the network for our laboratory hiring managers, scientists, engineers, for our laboratory as a whole. That's what we want to do. We want to have your network be just as broad and as wide as can be. So when it's time to cast that wide net, you've got a wider net that you can go to. And so we're trying to help and assist and push that up. The same thing is true on the other side, and that's what Colette talked about. We want to expand the knowledge of the attendees so that they know we exist, know that we're not Livermore and we're not UC Berkeley, but we are a third entity all unto ourselves. And so those are the 2 primary goals. And so to measure that, God bless somebody. To measure that, what we're trying to do is to work with the conference organizers and look at doing some sort of a pre-survey of what people know about the laboratory. So that's still a work in progress, but that's part of it. The other part, to measure what we're doing here at the laboratory, right now what we're doing, because it's still very small, is we're meeting with individuals beforehand and then doing some lessons learned afterwards to see what they're doing. As far as any true direct hires that would come from this, that usually is going to take quite some time. And so we're not using the direct hires or even the candidate slates as measuring success or not, but right now we're using it just as a narrative of what people are learning when they come back from the conferences. And we've had a couple of feedback, and I may turn to someone on this side of the room eventually to share their experience when they were at SACNAS, because I think it was very positive. So the next steps for interest. Okay, I couldn't remember my parts of this. So we do have an interest form for our ambassadors. This is the website right here, and if you can read that and write it down really quickly, you can. Or you can just hold up your phone and scan that, and then that will take you to the site as well. The other option is we are at dio@lbl.gov, and we can send it to you as well. It'll be on our website. So we'll review your applications, or your interest form, I should say. It's not an application, it's an interest form. Confirm approval from your divisions to make certain that there is support from your division for this. Then we'll select the ambassadors on interest and support from your divisions. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to stand a little bit more because I think I'm blocking some folks. Then once we have the folks that are selected to be in the ambassadors, we'll have our strategic meeting that Lady talked about, see how we best want to move forward with this, what applications you'd like to submit or proposals you'd like to submit to the conferences. As we've said, we've had one successful meeting here that had a panel on what it's like to work at a national lab. And when we were at SACNAS, there was a panel for that, what it's like to work there. I think those are really great because it has a variety of other national labs. And we can talk about how we're not industry and we're not academia, we're something in the middle. And then that is very attractive to a lot of our postdocs, folks that have finished up the postdoc looking for their first position. And then, as I said, go to the conference, participate, network as much as you can, and then come back and then debrief with us and let us know what worked well, what didn't, what we can continue to enhance and revamp this program so it continues to get very, very strong, very robust, and really, as I don't want to say it's more than, but it equals all the other ones, is to sustain this. Because this is not going to be a once and done kind of activity. This is something that we need to do to continue to culture these relationships. And that, is the true goal, to culture the relationships so that the networks for us and for our colleagues at these conferences continues to grow.
National conference, we have some opportunities right here for you locally on site with Workforce Development and Education. So you can lead hands-on science activities if you like working with the K through 12 audience. We have our Blazes where you lead hands-on science activities with fifth graders. We have, of course, Daughters and Sons to Work Day. We're always looking for volunteers for that big day. When everybody brings their children to the lab, they do hands-on science activities. They engage with panels and speakers. We need you to participate, to talk about your job and your career. And then off-site, we have our Bliss Kits, where those are hands-on science activities that you can take into the community. If you have a school in your community, a church or a group, particularly that targets underrepresented minorities, we encourage you to get trained on these kits. We hold workshops every quarter. You're trained on them, and then you can come and check them out whenever you want. People also use them as their own personal science fairs at home or your kids' birthday parties. We definitely want you to engage with your local community. It's another way to get science out there, and again, it's another way for you to be an ambassador for the lab. And then we also do support local science fairs and events. If you guys have local science fairs and events that you want us to support, let us know. We will tap into our volunteer pool. And again, we want to keep cultivating that volunteer pools because we want it to grow and cast a wide net. And then there's always the opportunity to be a speaker or presenter or lead a tour of your own lab or maybe a facility. So there are the blends, and that's where we have groups that come to the lab. And people always ask me, hey, Colette, do you go out to colleges? And I do go out to colleges, but the model that we are really trying to support is to have these groups, these classes come to the lab, because that's the selling point, to see the advanced light source, to really see how science is done, not me going into a classroom talking to people. So we need you guys to volunteer to lead these talks, to talk about your science, to talk about your careers, again, to give them insight to what real scientists do here at the lab. And then there are internships where you can be mentors. And you can work with undergraduates or faculty from minority-serving institutions where they come and you mentor them for 10 weeks during the summer or 16 weeks during the fall and spring. They do a paper, they do a poster. It's a real robust program. And we also need you guys to be mentors or to participate in their brown bag meetings as speakers to talk about your work and your career. So locally, you have opportunities that you can get into the community and spread the word about how great Berkeley Lab is.
I think that's it. One more?
Oh, and lastly, not just through our department, because I can't just plug us, right? Although, remember, workforce development and education is your key to outreach. There are all of these other ways that you can. The Employee Activity Association, of course, they always do a lot of community outreach. You guys should get involved with that. The Employee Resource Groups, Lady D&I has been doing a great job with launching those. And then the Women Scientists and Engineering Council, they do a lot of outreach. And if at your division, a lot of you guys have your efforts, Workforce Development will support you. We help nuclear sciences with their Scout Day. So if you have ideas and you know that your division wants to do something, please call us. We will partner with you, provide materials, and again, tap into our volunteer pool to support you in that effort. Volunteer!
Now we're up to the question and answer portion of the thing of the afternoon here. Before I go, I just want to do a little plug for the Employee Resource Group. So for those that aren't yet aware, we launched 4 employee resource groups from late fall until early winter this year. And the employee resource groups that have now been launched are for veterans, Lambda Alliance, which is serving our LGBTQ community, All Access, which serves the individual with disability or mobility challenges or other issues. And then the newest one is the Early Career and Postdoc ERG, which started just this winter. So those are the 4 that we have now, and a 5th one is coming up soon. We are working with the, I'll call them the steering committee, to get together for the African American community here at the laboratory, and that one is just now getting started. So we will have 5 eventually. So those are the ERGs that she talked about, and I think hopefully everyone knows the other ones because they've been around for a very long time. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
And including with the question and answer portion, we do have some people here, and I don't want to call you by name, but we do have some people here who have served as ambassadors in our pilot program in 2015. So feel free to share a little bit, too, about your experience if you feel so inclined.
Yeah, so we won't call you out, but if you want to just volunteer to share your experiences, I'm sure others here would love to hear that. Any questions? If there's questions online, I'm sorry, you could write to us and we'll answer them. Yes?
Hey, so I'm Cameron Geddes. I'm a scientist in ATAP division. So I think this is a great program, and I look forward to being involved. One thing I wanted to ask about was, over the last year, I've gotten involved in my physics division of plasma physics, their outreach efforts. And so I think it's one great avenue, as you talked about, to go to, for example, conferences for Black or Hispanic or whatever other groups, physics. Another approach that I just wanted to sort of sound out with you was, for example, at the Division of Plasma Physics, there's a women's group at the Division of Plasma Physics. They meet every year. Just starting last year, we now have an LGBTQ group that's meeting every year. I would love to see groups started for other underserved communities in physics, for example, Black physicists or something like that. And those are opportunities both for it's a low-cost opportunity for the lab to be represented because you're going to the meeting anyway. And B, it could be an opportunity to lead for some group that isn't yet established. And I guess the last thing on that list is some of those divisions, ours, for example, does have an outreach day. So I'm definitely interested in talking with you about that.
Okay, I think that's great that plasma physics is reaching out. And we do want to partner with those. And just as you said, if you guys are already going to those conferences, then that's a great time for us to capitalize on that and then to help you out with some of those things, maybe with some of the LinkedIn groups or participate in a booth or whatever it might be. That'd be great. So we'd be interested in partnering with that.
Maybe we could coordinate to just make sure that there's somebody from LBL at those events so that people who are there see that we are supportive or we're interested in furthering those communities.
Yes, and I think we made it pretty clear that diversity and inclusion has partnered quite well with Workforce Development Education. Again, not to call folks out, but I will call out Rachel since she already spoke once. We also partner very, very well with the recruiters here at the laboratory, and Rachel represents the recruiters, and I think she's invited every single one of the recruiters, and they're in the room as well. Because when we do participate at these various events, we try to have a recruiter at all of them because they have a different perspective and they know more about the laboratory as a whole. Have another question? Yes?
Hi, Paul Matthew with the Energy Technologies area. So at these conferences, so what is the idea that we actually go and present a paper or something?
That's the preferred choice, is to present a paper. However, we have little control over whether you get to present a paper or not.
Sure.
So we ask you to submit a proposal for that. We'll help you with what we need to as far as the administrative aspects of submitting that. We also want to work with the conference coordinators to see if we can get some sort of a lab day and maybe have a panel on what it's like to work at a national lab. We did participate in one of those at the SACNAS conference that was held in October of last year, and that was went very, very well. In part, the president of SACNAS last year was a national lab employee, so that was kind of very smooth to get that going. But it did work well. We have that success, and so I think we could really I don't want to say easily, but we could very effectively ask another conference coordinator to have a session that's on the national labs. And we have enough interactions now between Rachel and the three of us here to group up enough other national labs to have a nice panel that would be across the national labs, NSA as well as Office of Science researchers.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
but back to those dates on that. I mean, presumably it's probably already too late for if those are the dates for those conferences. I imagine all the papers have already been submitted, or is that not the case?
We did send these out already, asking people to submit for SACNAS. I want to say the date is in August. I think August is for this one and SHIP. I don't remember. Oh, Fermi is a unique one. So NESP is going to be held at Fermi Lab, and I haven't seen too much come from there here of late. All of us here are DOE indirect employees. Because it's such a large conference, they're still, last I heard, they're still waiting for DOE approval to finalize the conference stuff there. But we will be involved in the NESP one quite a bit. So, oops, I'm doing the
Sorry,
wrong.
no, that's me.
That's you. Okay, I was like, what am I pushing? So for these next three, I think we're fine. ACES is really kind of a student-geared presentations and such, but we like to be there and just network with those groups because there's 1,600 Native Americans in STEM is a very large number.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to say, and just also if you come and attend to get a sense of it and to be at the booth and talk to students and at the career festival or expo, not festival, at the career expo, that's another way to also engage and establish and cultivate those relationships. They come with resumes in hand and they really do want to talk to scientists. So even if you're not there for the paper and you do want to do some outreach, just to come and get a sense of it is a good way to get started.
And I know that we listed some of these ideas here, but we're very open to if you have other ideas. Another idea that seemed to go very well was the idea of a mentoring cafe where we have like a breakfast with a scientist or coffee with a scientist. So different ideas. Very creative. If they want to sit down and just do very casual one-on-one and just see what that's like. That's also an idea that can be worked out. So we're very open to see what the action plan would be.
Can you send us a copy of this presentation?
We can.
Good, but who do we send it to?
We
didn't have people.
we could put it on the web.
Yeah.
We could put it on the web. So if that's helpful.
Diversity.lbl.gov, and from
Okay.
that site, there's a DIO, Diversity Inclusion Office link, and we can put it there.
Yeah, because I'd like to share this with some of the leadership in the division.
That's
Okay.
great. And we do want to get
Send
the
it to
word out. So if you want to present it, that's fine. If you want us to come in and also talk about it, we're happy to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lady has presented this to individual divisions that have requested this, but then she got so many requests that it'd be great to have a lab-wide invitation for an open house.
Other questions? Comments?
Okay. I don't want to take up too much time. This is lunchtime, so you can. Do we have a question over here? No. Okay. So you guys can go ahead and go. But I just wanted to share that we have these going on. We're really interested in having presenters at the conference, either at a paper. We can easily see that if there's a presenter or a speaker at one of the activities or events at the conference, the activity at the booth significantly rises. It goes up. We could have the worst location in the back left corner where no one goes. Once there's just a speaker up there, they find us. Yes, they do.
Chris?
And just to put in the plug over here, I was the ambassador at the SACNAS conference last year.
Yay!
I enjoyed the experience, and I'm happy to speak with anybody if you want more information about what it seemed like from my perspective. So, for one thing, I was struck by the size of the conference. I hadn't realized it was going to be as big as it was.
About 5,000.
It was held in Washington, D.C. Secretary Moniz gave the keynote address. One of the things that was impressive to me was my ability to interact with other national lab staff from other national labs at relatively high levels of the national laboratory leadership. I was very impressed with the quality of the students that attended. I hadn't really understood until I got there how they get there. So students who attend SACNAS have to apply to either present a poster or present an actual oral seminar. and it is that application process that qualifies them to attend the conference. So I was asked to be a judge of one of those oral presentations. I ended up sitting in a room with 4 PhD physicists, my bachelor's in physics, my PhD's in public policy, so I was a little bit unnerved by the discussion of string theory, but I tried to hang in there. I think the exposure to the students there was fantastic. They were very high quality students. I was really impressed with the other professional organizations that were in attendance. There was actually quite a large national federal government presence there, and so it was interesting to see how the other elements of the federal government were participating in this recruitment drive. But overall, excellent experience, and like I said, I'm happy to talk further with anybody else.
Great.
That was very good.
Thank you so much.
One of the things that I like to say about these conferences that's a little bit different than maybe your standard IEEE or APS type conference is when you have a speaker like Secretary Moniz, you usually give some sort of a certificate or a plaque or an appreciation gift. And at SACNAS, what they did is they have individual blankets made for the speaker that was made especially for them by a particular high-level person that does this. And there's a presentation for the blankets with Native American drummers and Native American music. So it's a very different flavor. Also, at most of these conferences, APS, etc., there's usually a banquet at some point that you have some sort of an evening gala to get together and have dinner. At SACNAS, they have a powwow. So again, it's a different flavor than your standard conference. And so I think that helps our employees to go there and see the community that these individuals will be coming from. So these are events and activities and traditions that would be very standard for most all of the attendees, but for some of the scientists that have not been in that world, this is a new exposure for them. And I think it's a really nice awareness activity for them.
And I think by having, Berkeley Lab and other employers there, it sort of signifies that we're welcoming them to bring their whole selves to work, right? Like we welcome their culture, we welcome their traditions, we welcome who they are. And I think that's just a very positive presence, just being there.
Right, because there's two sides. There's diversity and inclusion. Diversity is the numbers and the metrics. It's by Crystal's definition. And inclusion is feeling part of the game. And so somebody from ATAP, there's a couple from ATAP, I love her definition of it. Diversity is being asked to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. And so we want people to feel that when they're here, they're actually can be themselves.
Because you can invite someone to a party and not ask them to dance. And they're just going to be a wallflower, and then they're going to leave the party, right? That's the revolving door.
Early.
That's the revolving door, and that's what we don't want. So we can get our numbers up in hiring, but if for whatever reason the inclusion is not up to par to what their expectations were, they're not going to stay. So we want to make sure that we do both. So it's a chicken and an egg thing. So we want to do both
Same time.
as well as we can.
Okay, and I think I've said goodbye a couple times, but that's it. If we don't have any more questions, thank you very much for your time. We really sincerely appreciate it. And scan that. We'll put this on our website. I can send them directly to you because I know you. But you're good. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.